The plane was gaining altitude, colorful clouds flickered outside the window. Yana leaned back in her seat and tried to relax for a moment. After her mother's call and the terrible news of her father's sudden death, she had cried all night long. The girl was flying to the funeral of the most beloved and closest person in the world. Memories of her happy and carefree childhood kept coming to her mind. Here she was with her parents at the Black Sea, her dad teaching her to swim, they jumping on a mattress, eating delicious baklava and aromatic melons. Her mom grumbling for them to get out in the sun, but they laughed and splashed her with salty water. Here she was with her dad riding in a hot air balloon, a little scared but so interested, her dad hugging her and telling her about those distant places and countries they would definitely go to. Here he gave her roller skates and agreed to teach her how to skate in the park. Not even 10 meters away, they both fell and scraped their knees, but they didn't cry, they laughed for a long time. And how he hugged her, embraced her, called her his little pea. For everyone else, Dad was a strict and businesslike businessman, but not for her. Yana always knew that no matter what happened, her father would do anything for her, but help his little daughter. He loved her so much. Oh, Dad, Dad! How could this happen? Who did you leave us with Mom for? We are both absolutely unprepared for life. My carefree life, studying in France, and entertainment are also your merit. Tears choked the girl again. She opened a bottle of water and took a few sips to calm down. Yana's parents met in Soviet student years, both studied at the Aviation Institute. They lived in a family dormitory, shared everything with their neighbors, and were good friends. Spartan conditions didn't bother anyone. Then they worked at a factory, designing parts for airplanes. They received an apartment from the enterprise. Oh, how much joy there was! And when the turbulent 90s came and all industry with aviation stalled, Viktor Semenovic did not give up. He began to think about how to survive and where to get money. He bought one workshop of an old sewing factory and began to sew popular labels there with his wife. They worked day and night until they were exhausted. They didn't give up. His back and hands hurt like hell, but they didn't give up, because they worked for themselves, so they had to try, no matter how hard it was. The business quickly went uphill. The quality of the products was no worse than imported ones and flew off the shelves like hotcakes. The capital gradually increased. Anything could happen, and racketeers didn't allow them to live. They fought back together, shoulder to shoulder. Zoya, a faithful wife, found a way to invest money wisely at a favorable interest rate and increase their fortune. At that time, many did the same, although the risk of losing everything was also great. But the couple was lucky. Fortune was on their side. The profit was simply stunning. Then they bought a small, failing bank and jointly restored it from ruins. So Viktor Semenovic became known in the city and a respected banker. He was strict but fair. His employees respected him firmly, and even a little feared him. For negligence, absenteeism, or lateness, Viktor Semenovic could deprive bonuses, or even fire someone. He always did everything conscientiously, and demanded the same from subordinates. When her husband's business went up, and the financial situation, as their life became stable and successful, Zoya gradually stepped back from work and became a homemaker. The couple acquired a large mansion in a prestigious area, and the woman began to create a cozy atmosphere, focusing on designing the garden area. Zoya finally decided to become a mother, as all the previous years had flown by in a frenzy and she had not had time for it. The long-awaited pregnancy in the family occurred when both were already in their 40s. Doctors scolded the couple for delaying it so long and warned of possible complications, but Zoya did not want to listen to anyone and decided to keep the baby. Viktor Semenovic openly dreamed of an heir and really wanted a boy to continue his business and follow in his footsteps. Therefore, he was a little disappointed and upset when he was told that his wife had given birth to a girl, but as soon as he saw the little, funny face with little fists in the maternity ward, he started kissing her nose and whispering, "You're my little pea." Since Yana was a late and desired child, she practically didn't know any limitations. A private elite school with advanced foreign language study, the latest gadgets, designer clothes, and so on. After finishing school, her father sent her to France, to a prestigious university, and faithfully paid for all her needs and whims. Yana really studied well, and just a month ago she defended her economics diploma. The girl did not rush to look for work, thinking of relaxing a bit and resting after the intense studies. Recently, she had broken up with her picky English boyfriend and wanted to go on vacation to the seaside with her friend. But then she received sad news from her mother, and without hesitation, Yana dropped everything and flew back home on the first flight. It was gloomy, cold, and rainy at home, and the situation was even worse. Some strangers were wandering around the house. The tearful mother sat in a chair with a detached look. A woman in a white coat was measuring her blood pressure, and the smell of Corvalol was in the air. The father's funeral was scheduled for tomorrow. Yana rushed to hug her mother in tears. "How could this happen, Mom? Dad didn't seem to be sick with anything special? What happened? I just can't understand it. I still can't believe he's gone." The woman wailed even louder. "Misfortune has come to us, my daughter. Lately, he had been complaining about his heart, and I gave him Validol or nitroglycerin. I kept urging him to see a cardiologist and get an electrocardiogram. But would he listen to me? As usual, he was too busy with his damn business. He grabbed his heart at the table after work, exhaled, and died. Right before my eyes. I couldn't believe it. I called an ambulance, talked to him, but it was all in vain. How are we going to live now? We were so close all our lives, it seems like someone cut off my hand or foot. I'll die without him too." Yana cried and tried to calm her mother. "Why are you saying such terrible things, Mom? What about me? Did you think about me? It hurts me too, and you're saying such scary things. We have to be strong. Hold on. Can I say goodbye to him?" This was the worst day of her life, and Yana remembered it forever. She couldn't overcome herself and kiss her father in the coffin. Her brain simply refused to understand that it was him. The daughter supported her mother during the procession, as she could barely stand on her feet, and cried uncontrollably in a different voice. The rain was pouring down. It seemed even the sky was crying for her father. A crowd of unfamiliar strangers was around them, and the daughter held her mother's hand tightly. A gloomy cemetery and an indescribable pain inside. It seemed that only now Yana fully realized that she would never see her father again, never hug him, never hold him close. She was shaking all over, not feeling the cold or the bone-chilling wind. It seemed like a terrible dream, a nightmare, and she would wake up soon and everything would be as it was before. Through the crowd of mourners, a respectable, thin, elderly man in glasses made his way to Yana and gestured to her that he wanted to talk to her. They moved aside a bit, and he began frankly, "Yana Viktorovna, please accept my condolences. Your father was an experienced man in banking. He held everything together. This is an irreparable loss for all of us. But you must understand that business is a cruel thing and it's not a woman's job. So I propose to buy your father's share for a very good price. Think about my offer." Yana gasped at such cynicism. "How can you even say that on such a day? A person has died. My dear and close person, do you understand that? I can't think about anything else right now. Get out of here! I don't want to see any of you. Why did you even come to the cemetery? To say goodbye to my father or to divide his money? You have no conscience. The man quickly retreated and merged with the crowd. At home, her mother, a little relieved from her grief, began to persuade Yana to take her father's place. My dear, I'm already old and my health is failing, all the hope is on you. Otherwise, these vultures will quickly take everything for themselves. It's a pity, this thriving bank, your father's brainchild, he put his whole soul into it. Yana resisted. Mom, I can't do it. I have no experience. I just finished college. I can't even imagine what to do there and where to start. Under my leadership, my father's bank will surely fail. What kind of director am I? You say it too. The woman encouraged her. Yanachka, you're smart, you studied conscientiously, you'll figure it out little by little. I'll help you with something. After all, your father and I also started from scratch. We studied completely unrelated subjects. And nothing. You also need to build your own career someday. And this is a great start. Your own bank. Come on, decide. I believe in you. For the sake of your father's memory. The daughter thought for a couple of days and reluctantly agreed. She didn't want to upset her mother even more. She decided, nothing ventured, nothing gained. In the end, if I can't handle it, we can always sell it, there are already buyers. The next Monday, Yana entered the bank building, walked into the director's office, and on the way told the secretary, Good morning, Ludmilla. From today, I'm in charge of the bank. Please bring me coffee with milk, no sugar, and call an urgent meeting at 9 o'clock. On the desk, she saw a photo in a frame. There were her father, mother, and herself. All happy and so happy. Tears welled up in the girl's throat, and tears began to drip down her cheeks against her will. The first day at work was not very successful. At the meeting, everyone looked at her unkindly, and the deputy couldn't hold back and said everything at once. You, of course, forgive me, dear miss, but I thought that after your father's death, I had the right to take his place. I earned it after many years of work. And I'm not going to watch a circus when yesterday's student is in charge and will sink us. So I'm writing a resignation and leaving. He slammed the door so hard that all the folders on the shelf jumped. Yana was shaking all over, in horror thinking, well, now everyone else will scatter too, and I'll be alone here in charge. But she didn't show it and calmly continued, if anyone else disagrees that a sniveling student will be at the helm of the bank, I'm not holding anyone. I need reliable, like-minded colleagues. I won't deny that it will be difficult at first, but I will try not to shame my father's memory and continue his life's work. To her surprise, the other employees remained silent, hanging their heads. The girl smiled and said, well then, everyone to their workstations, and bring me the reports on the bank's financial status from last month. I will review them now. The first few months were very tough. Yana made regrettable mistakes, impulsively signing several completely unprofitable deals, and the financial situation became unstable and shaky. The employees whispered and laughed at the inexperienced manager. It was so humiliating and unpleasant. The girl sometimes worked late into the night on piles of reports and papers, asking her mother for help, and still clearly couldn't keep up with the frantic pace of work. Now she understood how hard it was for her father to earn every penny. Not only that, Yana went to work every day as if going to war. She felt like she was alone among enemies. She knew that everyone was just waiting for her to make a mistake, to slip up, and then crush her, leaving her with nothing. Mentally, it was so difficult for her that often when she came home, she just cried out of hopelessness. It was like dragging a huge stone uphill that was about to fall and crush her with its weight. One day, her father's sly and shrewd partner, Sergei Ivanovich, came into Yana's office and said, "I found a very interesting and profitable offer from our reliable partners. The profit should be substantial. This should help us emerge from the very difficult situation that is slowly but surely approaching a crisis. I suggest we gather tomorrow at the Europa restaurant and have a banquet there, where the deal will be ceremoniously signed. It's been a while since we've had a break. Yana Viktorovna, you don't mind, do you?" Yana thought to herself, as if I were against it, it would change anything. Again, I wasn't given a choice, they just presented me with the fact. And smiled and said, "Why should I be against it? On the contrary, it will unite our close-knit team." On the day of the banquet, an unexpected force majeure occurred in the bank's office. An old water supply pipe burst in the hallway. Water was splashing in all directions, quickly flooding the entire floor. The security guard Valerie managed to shut off the water in time, but something had to be done urgently, as you can't sit without water for long, and the employees had a lot of work that day. Yana panicked, trying to find a way out. The local housing and utilities office promised to send a locksmith only in the evening, and despite all the reproaches and persuasions, they advised calling a handyman service. There was nowhere to go. Yana found an ad in the newspaper and called a master to the bank, leaving an application. 15 minutes later, a pleasant young man in work clothes and with a tool case arrived in response to the call. He skillfully got to work, and after half an hour, the problem was fixed, and everything was working as it should. Yana couldn't be happier, as the corporate event was just around the corner. She paid the master and chatted with him a bit. The guy turned out to be smart and could even hold a conversation on the topic of banking. And he was stunningly handsome. Tall, statuesque, and with an athletic torso. And suddenly, a wild and crazy thought came to Yana's mind. She unexpectedly offered the guy, "Genya, would you like to come with me to the corporate event as my fiancé?" He was stunned and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't understand. How is that possible? Are we already dating?" And he laughed loudly. The girl blushed, but continued, "You don't understand, it's not real. I just need to make an impression on my colleagues, that's all. Solidity, so to speak. I've only been working here for a short time, and my subordinates don't take me seriously yet. It's only for a couple of hours. You won't lose anything. Let's go to the boutique now, dress you up to the nines. You don't have to say much, just accompany me. But you'll get to try all kinds of delicacies, dance to pleasant music, and combine business with pleasure. I'll pay you handsomely for this time, and you can report that you were delayed by an order." To be honest, Eugene was really impressed by this businesslike, beautiful, and well-groomed lady, who didn't have any arrogance or boasting like many wealthy ladies, and she really asked for something trivial. So he was even flattered that he would be in high society, with such a beauty, a bank director. It was like such an interesting game, why not try it? And the guy agreed. Jan was thrilled as she fled to the expensive boutique of designer clothes with her pseudo-cavalier, anticipating what a wow effect she would make today on her harmful and envious colleagues by appearing with such a suitor. But everything was ruined by the overly curious Ludaka. As usual, she overheard the conversation between the director and the plumber and almost fell off her chair. What a turn of events! She immediately spread this news like a magpie to all the authorities, worse than any radio. When Jan came out of the beauty salon, Eugene was amazed. The girl looked simply stunning in a long, form-fitting silk dress with a deep neckline and elegant high-heeled shoes. Her favorite set of emerald earrings and necklace perfectly harmonized with her green eyes, and the neat hairstyle emphasized her elegant image. Glancing at her partner, the girl was satisfied. The business suit fit the guy like a glove and only emphasized his powerful torso. However, when they pompously entered the restaurant and began to greet everyone, there was no wow effect, much to Jan's disappointment. On the contrary, everyone looked at her companion in a somewhat ambiguous way. The ladies whispered about something, all of which was more than strange. Eugene, as agreed, was friendly, polite, but taciturn. He took care of Jan, danced slow dances with her, and watched with interest what was happening around him. When they danced, the guy whispered to her, "Well, Jan Viktorovna, what a team you have. Not a single kind and open person, like a snake's nest. I imagine how difficult it is for you." In the midst of the banquet, Sergei Ivanovich turned off the music and loudly announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to finish what we came here for. Jan Viktorovna, please familiarize yourself with the documents and sign the contract. Let's celebrate the successful deal with champagne and continue our fun." Jan took the documents in her hands, read all the pages, and there seemed to be no catch. She had already raised her hand over the paper when Eugene suddenly whispered in her ear, "Wait, let me read it. Something fishy is going on here. Please." She looked at him surprised and meaningful, but still let him read the documents. Thinking to herself, "Eugene, what are you doing? This is going too far. We didn't agree on this." He quickly scanned the papers, frowned, and continued, "Don't sign anything. It's a scam. They want to swindle you and leave you without profit. Your bank will go under. Look at what's written in the additional agreement in small letters at the bottom, and read it again, carefully." Everyone in the hall murmured dissatisfiedly, and Jan blushed like a boiled lobster as she read all the pages again, stopping in detail on those points, as indicated by Yana. Her hands immediately trembled. "Oh my God. There is a huge percentage and completely unfavorable conditions here that will put us in debt for many years. And how did I not notice this right away?" Yana said firmly, "It seems to me, Sergei Ivanovich, that you rushed with this deal. In the future, I will ask to be informed of all the nuances and not to negotiate with partners without my knowledge. I am not going to sign anything here. This is absolutely not beneficial for us." He got angry. "Who said that? Your supposed fiancé? And who is he? A financial expert or a super expert? He's just a plumber. And you only met him today. And we all knew about it from the very beginning. Who are you listening to? I have been in business for many years and I know what is profitable and what is not." Yana became furious. "So, who my fiancé is absolutely none of your business. That's one. I won't sign anything. That's two. The banquet is over. That's three. And as for you, Sergei Ivanovich, we'll talk later. All the best." She kept her composure and left the restaurant confidently with Jinya by her side. And only when she got behind the wheel of her car, she let her emotions take over and cried, shaking all over. She felt so bitter and offended. Yana sobbed through her tears. "I can't do anything. Everything falls apart like a house of cards. I can't stand those disgusting faces. I have no more strength. How could I, a fool, not notice what you saw. And what kind of leader am I after this? None. And she burst into tears even more. Yana was completely at a loss. He had never seen a woman's hysterics before. He tried to cheer her up and comfort her. Why are you so upset? Everything is fine. You didn't agree to a scam, so you won't suffer losses. And what was difficult at first will get easier with experience. You have a strong character. It's immediately noticeable. Yana weakly smiled and started wiping off her smudged makeup. Suddenly, she looked closely at the guy and asked, Yana, tell me about yourself. How do you know so much about business? It doesn't fit with being a handyman and fixing pipes. And stop using formal language. We were on a first-name basis in the restaurant. The guy sighed and began to tell about his difficult life. I'm an orphan, grew up in an orphanage, don't even remember my parents. My mother abandoned me in the maternity ward and ran away without even looking. In my childhood, I had to fight and use my fists often to survive there. Life in the orphanage is similar to being in a prison. Packs live here by wolf laws. Weaklings are immediately subjugated and humiliated all the time. The only joy was that our teachers were strong, especially the math teacher, Fyodor Andreevich. It was he who instilled in me a love of exact sciences. He gave interesting additional tasks, explained the incomprehensible material bit by bit, and most importantly, didn't allow laziness. Moreover, he contributed to my admission to a prestigious economics university after graduation. I would never have made it there on my own. Everything was going well. I successfully completed 3 courses, and then I was a fool and messed up my own life. I fell in love with a girl from a parallel stream, Marina, so much so that I couldn't imagine life without her. As usual. Dates, walks, discos, everything like everyone else. The bride had high demands, so I got a part-time job to buy her all sorts of gifts and take her to cafes and movies. My friends told me more than once, Marinka doesn't love you. Don't you see? She's using you to the fullest. You let her copy all your lectures, do her assignments, provide entertainment, and she's still not satisfied. We're all poor students here. She should understand that. She'll use you up and dump you. I was going crazy, arguing with many of them, thinking they were just jealous of me and spreading dirt about Marishka. And then one night at the disco, she had a little too much to drink and started dancing hot dances. Immediately, one sly rich guy came up to her, tried to drag her into his car by force and offered to take her for a ride, right in front of my eyes. Marina cried, screamed, and begged to be let go. Who could tolerate such a thing? So I started fighting him, defending my fiancé's honor, punched him in the face and took Marina away from there. And this jerk raged and shouted after us. You're finished, beggar! You'll remember me 100 times. Do you even know who my father is? I just shrugged it off, thinking he was laughing out of spite. And I was wrong. This bastard was such a coward that he immediately ran to complain to his daddy, who happened to be the city prosecutor. I was expelled without explanation soon after, and they shamed and humiliated me on the student council for a long time. I tried to explain everything, that I fought because the bully was harassing my fiancé, but no one listened to me. I thought Marinka would stand up for me and confirm that everything was true, but she took sick leave and went to her parents in the district center to avoid being involved in the scandal. This jerk even made it so that no matter where I tried to transfer to, no one would take me. As soon as they heard the name Ershav, they hung up the phone. I was so disappointed. I thought Marinka would be grateful, since I suffered because of her, but even that failed. She dumped me right after all these troubles. Well, of course, why would she want a problematic fiancé? And what's worse, she got involved with that same scoundrel later, bought into his money. That's all love for you. Since then, I've sworn off meeting anyone. So I had to become a handyman in a company, just to make a living. They pay well. Enough to live on. So I have no right to complain. It's my own fault. Yana shook her head. Well, your life isn't a bed of roses either. If you want, I can help you with money. Or I can help you recover. My late father had enough connections everywhere. I owe you. The guy shook his head negatively. What? I'm not some beggar. I'll never take money from a girl. I can earn it myself. Then Yana said, well, if that's the case, come work for me as a consultant at the bank. You see how many gross mistakes I make? You'll be a great help. Eugene thought for a moment. I like this offer. I agree. Accounting and reports have always been my strong suit in college. Deal! But how will your colleagues react to this? They already hate me after the banquet was ruined. So they won't be happy to see me. Yana smiled. Don't worry about it, they don't like me much either. But I'm still the director, so it's up to me to decide who to hire. And who is not there. I generally think that we need to review the personnel and make a small rotation, because many have become too arrogant. So, with the help of Yana, Jenya became her consultant and right hand. At first, passions raged in the bank. In the smoking rooms, they whispered. Well, the young pig went crazy. What kind of plumber is a consultant? Where's this seen at all? Not a bank, but a clown show. Soon they will transfer our cleaner, Lenka, to economists. But over time, it became noticeable that incomes had increased and the financial situation had significantly improved with the arrival of Yevgeny. Before each deal, the man carefully studied all the risks and nuances and gave his conclusion whether it was worth getting involved in a new project or not. Many reconsidered their attitude towards him and respected him as a specialist, albeit with an unfinished higher education. And Yana also became confident and calm behind Jenya's back, knowing that he would not let her down or deceive her. She could consult with him if she had any doubts and had already noted 100 times to herself the truth of the phrase that business is really not a woman's thing. Therefore, those women who drag it alone become over the years iron ladies or simply men in skirts. The guy often visited Yana's house. At first with work questions, and then just as friends, he met her mother. Zoya Ivanovna really liked him. A calm, pleasant, balanced, and serious young man. And Yana got used to and became close to Jenya to such an extent that she no longer thought of her life without him. There were strange relationships between them. A mixture of friendship and mutual sympathy. Yana often thought about him at night. She wanted so much to kiss those sensual lips, to snuggle up to muscular shoulders. And she had long been ready for their relationship to become even closer. But she was brought up in such a way that she could not confess her feelings first. And she waited for Jenya to take that step. After all, she felt that he was not indifferent to her either. But for some reason, the guy stubbornly feared their rapprochement. And that was the pure truth. Yana really liked Jenya since that very first meeting and banquet. She stirred up his imagination, but after such a tragic first love with Marina, he was afraid that the same thing would happen with Yana. And he convinced himself. Don't spoil everything. Life has improved. Yana and I are best friends, partners, colleagues. Why complicate everything? Then it will be very painful again. Is it worth starting? She is a wealthy, respectable girl. She will play with me, and then leave when she gets bored. A couple of months later, Yana's mother, Zoya Ivanovna, actively took up the case, tired of waiting for any moves from both of them. She got a voucher for 2 for a week in Altai through connections. She knew from conversations that Eugene had been dreaming about it all his life. When Yevgeny brought Yana home after work and came in to say hello, Zoya Ivanovna began to complain worriedly. "Daughter, can you imagine? I asked my old friend to get me some kind of voucher. Wanted to go south, relax. So this old fool, Lubania, got everything mixed up and got me 2 vouchers for Altai. Where am I with my rheumatism and pressure, and where is Altai?" I wanted to refuse, but then I thought, why waste a good thing? Maybe you and Jinya will go. After all, as soon as you became the head of the bank, my little bird didn't rest at all. Got too busy, already sleeping poorly. Yana looked at the guy. What about you, Jinya? Don't mind. I would have waved it off, to be honest. I think nothing critical will happen in a week. Again, it is possible to adjust the work in phone mode, now that everyone has video communication. The guy almost jumped for joy. Zoya Ivanovna, you are gold, not a woman. Altai is my unfulfilled dream. Our geography teacher in the orphanage told us so much about it that I fell in love with it from afar. Hiking, mountains, tourism, what could be more exciting? I'm all in. Thank you. When do we leave? But don't think I'm a freeloader. I'll pay for myself. The elderly woman laughed. I told you, it's a hot tour. Everything is already paid for, a beautiful sanatorium, for meals a day. We leave the day after tomorrow. Hurry up and pack. Although Yana has been to many places abroad and it was difficult to surprise her with anything, she had never done mountain tourism in her life. Previously, relaxation for her meant getting full relaxation and letting loose at lively parties. Altai conquered the girl completely differently. They went on hikes in the mountains, swam in the purest lakes, and rafted on kayaks. When Yana, Jinya, and the group of tourists walked for a long time over a difficult pass and got very tired, the girl already wanted to throw everything to hell and go home. But as soon as they reached the top of the mountain and saw the simply stunning sight of a picturesque gorge stretching into the endless distance, such happiness and euphoria immediately set in, which is difficult to even express in words. She had never experienced such emotions in her life. As for Jinya, the majestic mountain peaks and high waterfalls completely conquered him. The songs by the crackling fire in the evenings evoked poignant romance. It turned out that the guy knew many heartfelt songs, and he had a pleasant velvety voice that made Yana swoon. When they were riding on the cable car to the sanatorium the next day, Yana suddenly became very scared when she looked down. Her head was spinning. She instinctively clung to Jinya, and suddenly, unexpectedly, she kissed him on the lips. She immediately tried to joke, "Oops, sorry, it's just my blood pressure acting up." I didn't. But then Jinya, unable to control himself, did not let her finish and sealed her mouth with a hot, passionate kiss. Their hearts beat in unison, and finally all the passion, desire, and hidden feelings accumulated over time burst out. That night they loved each other until dawn. Jinya whispered tenderly in the girl's ear, "These are the best days of my life, my sunshine, my dear, how I love you." Yana smiled, We are such fools. Like children, we hid in our shells and were afraid to say the most important and necessary words to each other. Jinka, I love you too. And I feel so good, like never before in my life. The guy suddenly became serious. Yana, have you loved anyone before me? Have you had serious relationships before? You never told me anything about yourself. The girl answered, I had only one romance, with a pragmatic Englishman, but love was definitely not involved there. Everything was extremely businesslike and scheduled. Even the days of the week were scheduled, and he squeezed our dates into them. I got tired of it all, felt like a toy. It's different abroad, everyone pays for themselves at cafes or movies, or in taxis. For them, it's normal. But for me, it was insulting. Although I could afford it financially. But you want a man to court you. Jinya kissed Yana and said, I will carry you on my hands, blow away the dust. Just promise me that no matter how fate turns out, you won't leave me in sorrow or joy, like Marina. Yana hugged her beloved. I promise. I don't need anyone else now. Upon returning home, satisfied Zoya Ivanovna immediately noticed the changes with her trained eye. Both had a sparkle in their eyes. The smiles did not leave their happy faces, and happiness shone through their gaze. Hooray! So my plan worked. Well done! Maybe I'll finally get grandchildren sooner. The woman thought to herself and said out loud, So, did you have a good rest? Did you like Altai? Yana and Jinya started talking excitedly about their impressions and showing photos on their phones. Then they began unpacking souvenirs, herbal tea, pinecone jam, and of course, magnets for the fridge. How could they not have them? After chatting a little more, Jinya started getting ready to go home and bustled in the hallway. Zoya Ivanovna looked at him with a squint and said, Young people. Why do you keep going back and forth? Jinya should move in with us already. I won't interfere. I have a room in the other far wing, and anyway, my favorite hobby is gardening and my plot, and you live as you want. Yana and Jinya exchanged meaningful glances and laughed loudly. They were headed towards a wedding, and Zoya Ivanovna had another fixed idea. She decided to try to find Jinya's mother and at least find out why she left him, because different circumstances can arise in life. She so wanted her to be found and come to her son's wedding. It would be so touching. The pensioner enthusiastically took up the task. Like Sherlock Holmes, she used all her and her late husband's old connections, and managed to find out the surname and name of the very woman who gave birth. Fortunately, the midwife was still alive and had her memory. Well, finding the address and everything else for a private investigator was no problem at all, and for a family friend and retired colonel, even more so. The woman's name was Ekaterina Guseva, and at the time of the birth she was only 16 years old. The next day, Zoya Ivanovna announced to her household, Yanachka, Jinya, I won't be here for a couple of days. I'm going to visit an old friend in Almatyevsk. She called me over to visit very insistently. Yana suspected something was wrong. Mom, have you never had any acquaintances in this city? Come on, what are you up to? But my mother just waved her hand and said, Don't worry, it's just my old age craziness. I'll be back soon, you'll get a break from me. And she laughed cheerfully. Zoya Ivanovna found the correct address and decisively rang the doorbell. She was not one to back down, and if she started something, she always saw it through to the end, as her late husband had taught her. A very attractive and well-groomed middle-aged woman with overly sad eyes answered the door. She asked in surprise, Good day. Who are you? We don't seem to know each other. The pensioner replied, "My name is Zoya Ivanovna. I'm from the neighboring city, and I have an important conversation to have with you. Can I come in?" The woman let her guest into the apartment and led her to the kitchen. Zoya Ivanovna decided not to beat around the bush and start with the main topic. "Ekaterina, it just so happened that I'm almost the mother-in-law of a very nice young man who will soon marry my daughter. His name is Yevgeny, he's 25 years old, and he grew up in an orphanage. He says his mother abandoned him at birth. Does that mean anything to you?" The woman became wet with sweat, her face changed, and she sharply asked, "What do you want from me? Why are you interrogating me? What business is it of yours to pry into my life? Who gave you the right to do so?" The pensioner softened her tone and said, "Please don't get so upset. I came here solely on my own initiative. Neither Yevgeny nor Yanachka know anything about it. I just thought that since the kids are getting married soon, maybe you'd like to congratulate your son? You never know. I'm not judging you, although I must admit, I can't understand how anyone can abandon their own child." Suddenly, Katya quietly burst into tears. "I was 16, my parents were respectable people, my mother was a gynecologist, and my father was a professor of philology. I was still in school when I fell in love with a senior named Dimka Vereshchagin. We were friends, went to the movies and discos together. And then, well, it happened only once, and, of course, I got pregnant. I hid it for a long time, hiding my belly under wide sweatshirts. When my mother and father found out, it was too late to have an abortion. 6 months! There was a terrible scandal at home. My parents shouted that I had disgraced them in front of the whole world. Dimka's parents quickly realized what was going on and sold everything they had, then ran away with their son from the city. I didn't tell him anything. What was the point? Everything had already been decided for him. My mother said that there was no talk of any child from an unknown father at 16. So she sent me away, supposedly for a long-term treatment in a sanatorium. In reality, I was stuck at home, and then I gave birth at night and left the baby. My mother took care of everything, and they took him to the baby home. The matter was hushed up. And I have regretted and cried about this sin of mine so many times. I was married twice, I'm a gynecologist myself, but God never gave me any children. It seems to be the punishment. How will I appear in front of my son's eyes? What will I say? I'm so ashamed. What kind of mother am I? I was just a child myself when I gave birth to him." Zoya Ivanovna listened without interrupting, then said, "Your Jajinka is a very good and kind guy, despite his broken fate. I think he will be able to forgive you. In general, the wedding will take place in 2 weeks, at the Plaza restaurant, and there, as you know." Soon there was a luxurious and beautiful wedding. Zoya Ivanovna insisted that they not deviate from tradition, so there was a family hearth, and doves were released into the sky, and they ate wedding bread, and the bride was stolen. In general, they had fun until they dropped. Their feet still throbbed from the lively dances for a week afterwards. Suddenly, an attractive, stylishly dressed middle-aged woman entered the hall and, glancing around, immediately recognized Eugenia. He looked so much like her late father. She approached him and said, "Hello, Eugenia. I need to talk to you. Can we step aside?" The boy refused. "Good evening. I have no secrets from my bride, so speak here. What do you want?" Ekaterina sighed and continued, "I, Eugenia, am your real mother. My name is Ekaterina. I really did abandon you at the maternity hospital. I'm not justifying myself. The only thing I can say is that I was only 16 at the time and my parents forced me to do it. But that doesn't absolve me of guilt. I've regretted what I did my whole life, and that's why I want to ask you, my son, for forgiveness. I don't want anything. I'm quite well off. Congratulations on your wedding from the bottom of my heart. I wish you both happiness and am sincerely happy for you. Here, this is from me. A wedding gift. And she handed him the car keys. Ekaterina turned around and was about to leave, realizing that she was out of place and her son was unlikely to forgive her. And there was no going back. But the boy suddenly ran up to her, hugged her tightly, and whispered in her ear, I forgave you a long time ago, Mommy, even back in the orphanage, and I've been looking forward to this. I'm so glad you found me and wanted to see me, even now, when I'm already grown up. I won't let you go anywhere. Sit down at the table. The woman tearfully burst into tears. Yana also burst into tears, and only Zoya Ivanovna, satisfied with herself, happily rubbed her hands. Well, that's good. Everything turned out as it should have. The guests looked at each other in bewilderment and couldn't figure out what had happened. Then Eugenia took the microphone and announced, Dear guests, I ask you to raise your glasses and drink to my mother, who found me after so many years. Now I have a full-fledged family too. Everyone shouted hooray and drank together. The dancing continued, and Zoya Ivanovna sat down with the matchmaker and began to improve their relationship. When the celebration was coming to an end, Eugenia whispered to Yana, Let's run away. I have one more surprise for you. The girl was intrigued. Really? I'm all for it. I love surprises. The boy quietly said, Just one condition, you'll have your eyes covered. Otherwise, the effect won't work. Are you in? They sneaked away from the banquet. Eugenia blindfolded Yana with a thick scarf and sat her in a limousine. They drove for a long time, then walked, then he picked her up and carried her somewhere. Then the ground seemed to sway and slip away from under her feet. The girl became frightened. Eugenia, I'm taking off the blindfold. What's the joke? It's not funny anymore. When she opened her eyes, she was simply amazed. She and Eugenia were on a snow-white yacht, right in the middle of the wide Volga River. The wind filled the sails and her airy white dress. A light buffet was laid out on the deck, fruit, champagne, caviar sandwiches. It was so unusual and amazing. No one has ever done such things for her. The sight of the endless mighty river, smoothly transitioning into the horizon line, the refreshing breeze, seagulls crying overhead, and her beloved man standing next to her at the helm, like a true captain. It was simply magical. Her husband tenderly kissed Yana, hugged her from behind, and whispered, So, how was the surprise? Did it work out? I hope you don't mind spending an unforgettable first wedding night on this yacht. It's just us, the waves, the wind, and no one else. Yana was shaken and happy at the same time. How great Eugene came up with this idea. So romantic. Tears welled up in her eyes. The newlyweds definitely remembered this night as the best in their lives. Immediately after the wedding, Eugene began to live in Yana's mansion. Both immersed themselves in work again, and during the rest time, a lot of work accumulated. They had to solve problems until late in the evening every day. After a month of such a crazy whirlwind, Yana began to feel worse and worse day by day. She had no strength. She could barely get out of bed in the morning. She constantly felt sick, and her appetite disappeared completely. She was really scared, but she didn't tell Eugene anything. although he noticed that she had lost too much weight and forced her to eat almost by force. The girl decided to share with her mother, and in the evening, when Eugene went to take a shower, she said, "Mom, don't worry. Advise me which doctor to go to. Something is really wrong with me. I feel dizzy, and I have no strength. God forbid anything bad happens. I'm even afraid to think about it." The elderly woman laughed. "Go to the gynecologist, dear. You're pregnant. I've known it for a long time. I've been waiting for you to share the news. Your mother-in-law is just at the appointment." Yana was stunned. "What? It can't be. Although, why not? Hooray!" Eugene almost cried with happiness when he looked at the small spot on the monitor screen that his mother and the ultrasound doctor showed him and said it was their baby. The man thought to himself, "I will become a father. Daddy! What happiness! I will give my child all the love and tenderness that I was deprived of." And Yana, lying on the couch, mentally thanked the dissatisfied woman from the housing office who advised her to call her husband for an hour. Eugene's temporary profession turned out to be prophetic. He became a husband, not for an hour, but for a lifetime. And such a husband that one can only dream of. Sometimes it happens that only one random, fleeting meeting with a person can completely turn the whole fate around and direct it into a happy course.